You're not going to want to miss this hilarious and honest episode with Alan Michael Lewis talking about our family upbringing, relationship with food and diet culture, and the cultural norms around that. Alan also has a huge impact on the next generation of marriage and family therapists as the director of internships at Council for Relationships. Alan, I'm so excited for you to be on our episode today. Thank you so much for making the time to join us.
Of course, I'm excited and excited to have this conversation.
Awesome. So, in the beginning, we kind of just dive right in and ask the therapist, kind of like, what's your origin story? How'd you get into the field? And just share a little bit about yourself.
Well, for me, 1776, a nation was found. I'm just kidding. I won't go back to the complete origin, but um, so I think that for me, a lot of my origin as a therapist came out of just coming from a very diverse and different dynamic kind of family. I've always been curious about backgrounds and upbringings and like where people started off. And I just kind of thought it was like, oh, this is interesting. And then I realized that, in family therapy, that's literally what you do. You kind of like piece together this puzzle of where people are coming from, what they're coming with, how they learned how to navigate through the world. And I think that when I found out about family therapy, I was like, oh, this feels good. This is something that I really want to get into. I remember taking my first family therapy course in undergrad, and I was like, wow, this is really interesting. I love it. And other people were like, this isn't for me. And I'm like, are you crazy? This is sensational. How dare you? So, and then from there, just going into really thinking about, well, what do I want to do for grad school? Where do I want to go? What do I want to focus on? And it was always, this idea of like relationship therapy, family therapy. And so in grad school, still something that I was really passionate about. After grad school, still wanting that to be a focus of my career. And I think I can safely say, without any type of chagrin, that I am a system snob. I very much am. I love hearing about people's pasts. I don't like to get stuck with my clients in their past, but really thinking about how their past informs the here and now and will inform the future. But I think that it all comes down to just the fact that I'm like really interested and curious about like, where did you come from and how did it inform the here and now? Um, yeah. So, and I also am a very big nerd when it comes to like genealogy and family research. So it just feels natural.
I love that. Maybe that's why we get along is I love the systems work too. And I remember
Mhm.
being in graduate school learning about it and like walking around my parents' house, like diagnosing
Yeah.
everybody
Oh
one
yeah.
by one, like,
Hmm.
oh, this is why
Hmm.
you're like this. This is why
Hmm.
I'm like that.
Um, Another thing that I do that I think is really niche is I like to read only fiction. Nonfiction, I'm not really a fan. But whenever it's like a fiction book, I'll do like a genogram or like a family tree because I'm like, I need to know this information. So you'll like see some of the books and you'll like open the page and it's like a paper that I've done a genogram of, and I'm like, don't judge me. This is my process.
That is hilarious. I love that. I still do that for every session in the beginning.
Hmm.
Always do
Hmm.
a genogram. I love to learn
Yeah.
about the family dynamic, right? I
Hmm.
think it is so important. Like, yes, we're individuals and there's other things that impact us, but relationships and our upbringing,
Hmm.
I feel like is at the core of what makes us who we are. And like,
Hmm.
you know, we develop before 7 years old, we're conditioned with all these things and then it
Hmm.
impacts everything else. So I
Hmm.
definitely love learning about the systems in the family too.
Yeah, and every session, and this comes from my internship days. We had to do a genogram with every client that we saw,
Hmm.
and so even for every session, I'll start with a genogram with whoever I'm working with. And I always tell the interns that I'm like supervising or whoever I'm supervising, like, I'm not saying, well, I'm going to do a genogram with you.
Yeah.
It's more of like the way that I structure my questions. It's like, I want to get a lot of information about where you came from. And I am like drawing a genogram. Is it using all of the symbols? No. Am I kind of like drawing like little things or I'm like denoting different things? Yes.
Hmm.
But I do it with every client that I work with. Yeah.
Yeah. So for the listeners who may not be in the therapy world, can you kind of
Mhm.
describe what a genogram is for them so they understand like what we're
Mhm.
laughing about?
Yeah, so I always with my clients, I always say like a genogram is basically like a family tree with a little bit more information. Um, it really is just kind of mapping out your family with the different generations and the people involved. I always say like the key people in your life. There are some genograms that include dogs and cats and
Hmm.
best friends and those friends that aren't really your family but they are your family,
Yeah.
because they're important to you. And I've done work with clients who have grief because of their family dog that has died, and so it's
Mhm.
important to have them on the genogram, because yes, they're not a human but they are very important in the work that we're doing. So it really is just like an ancestry.com, but I'm writing it out. And maybe I don't have all of the birth records, but I have the information.
Absolutely. I'm going to start asking about family pets. That's a really good point. I never thought about that because that is
Hmm.
pretty huge.
Hmm. I am a very big animal person.
Hmm.
Well, with a caveat, I am a fuzzy animal lover kind of person. Reptiles and snakes. If that is your niche, wonderful. It is not my ministry at all. Uh, but it's also to the other side of like, I do think I was like, humans really missed it when we didn't domesticate bears.
Oh my
I really would want a pet bear. That is so anything fuzzy. I'm like, yes, I want to talk about this. But when clients are like, well, I have a really big, python. No, that is lovely for you. We will keep
God.
that in the back of our minds.
That is hilarious. I love to ask the question for clients like to, describe like your mom's personality, but before
Mhm.
you do, how would you describe her when you were growing up versus now as an adult? Because I feel like
Ooh.
that answer is really
Mhm.
different and how they perceive that is really different as well. And you get so much information from seeing the difference between those two answers.
Mhm. Yeah, and I also like asking about, like the different like levels. I always say like, so starting off with the person, tell me about yourself, tell me about, who you are in the here and now. Tell me, do you have any siblings? Oh, tell me about the different siblings. Are you close with them? And then working my way up that way, because I think that way it's kind of like um, getting the lay of the land. But then as you're kind of going through the different levels, it's like adding more light into these different areas of like, oh, me and my brother don't get along. Oh, he's very much like my father. How do you get along with your
Mm.
father? Well, he's very authoritarian. I'm like, oh, that makes sense now. So so
Hmm.
really like kind of like building it in that way. And then sometimes I'll show the genogram to my clients, and they'll be like, wow, that's a lot. And I think that it's really empowering because it really shows you all this is going on,
Yeah.
and now I'm doing this work to prevent potentially block some of these patterns from continuing or change some of the dynamics, or we're working on this together to create a new narrative for ourselves. But I love when it's like, oh, that's a lot, and I'm like, well, yeah, it's a family. I mean, it's a system. It's
Hmm.
the nitty gritty of everything, so it makes sense that it's a lot.
Absolutely. And everyone kind of has their own role, every sibling,
Hmm.
each parent, right? Like the hierarchy of things. I feel like we could have
Hmm.
talked about just
Yeah.
family therapy for 5 hours. I don't know how I didn't put this on the talking points, but
Yeah, it's a lot and it's in depth. And I know that as therapists we're coming in with our own things. Whenever I'm sitting across from somebody who's like, well, I'm the youngest, I'm like, oh, me too, I get it, I
same.
get it.
Hmm.
And because then I'll be sitting across from somebody who's like, I'm the oldest and the youngest is, they get everything, and I'm like, well, I don't think we do, but let me hear your perspective.
I speak for the group and
Actually, we.
that's hilarious. And so who do you work with now? Where do you work? What's the setting that you work in for people to kind of hear a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so now I'm currently working at Counsel for Relationships. Shout out to Counsel for Relationships. And I'm doing teletherapy. So I am able to see clients in Pennsylvania, Delaware, Florida and New Jersey, hopefully New York soon. Fingers
Nice.
crossed. And so a lot of the work that I have been doing is a lot of patterns work and a lot of, hey, we're coming in with this. I'm noticing this in my relationships. I'm noticing this in the dynamic with my partner or with my family members or whoever I'm engaging with. What does it look like to outline that pattern, block that pattern from continuing? What would you need to build a new pattern? And how are you going to make sure that that pattern sticks? Because I think that's something that I work with my clients is, we operate the way we operate because we've learned that this is how we can get through life. If I pull somebody in, I get what I want, but then when I don't want it anymore, I distance myself and push them away. And that's really like this self-protective method of doing things. But if I'm in a relationship with somebody and I don't want to push them away, but I don't know how else to do it, then the work really is, how do I block that pattern from continuing? What might I need to create a new pattern? And how am I going to make sure that I'm not going back to my old pattern, but that I'm sticking to this new pattern? And I think that I bring up this like pattern work because, whether it's an individual, whether it's a couple, I'm working on the pattern work. And yes, we're talking about other things while we're talking about patterns. But I think that at the core of it, it really is, what do I want to see? How am I going to get there? And what might I need to get there? Because I think that the tendency is, I know where I want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And, oh, if I could just do this, if I could just do this. But folks always forget about, well, you need tools, you need people, you need things that are going to help you to get to where you want to go.
Absolutely. And I think, especially since you really dive into systems and families, is also recognizing where this pattern came from, why it served a function before,
Mm-hmm.
and why it's not anymore. I think that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes there's a gap between that because we think like we just keep doing this thing. Why do I keep doing this? I know it's bad for me. I know it's pushing people
Mm-hmm.
away, or I'm being too needy, or whatever it is. And we're not always aware or have the insight of, well, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It wasn't always a
Mm-hmm.
bad thing or unhealthy. I needed it to survive or to get through the relationships while I was younger with family
Mm-hmm.
members or siblings to get what I needed. And now I'm out of that environment and it's no longer functioning the way I need it to. So like now I need to revamp the way I operate in relationships.
Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of the clients that I work with, they come in with a lot of shame or blame about the way that they interact.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I'm just unlovable. Nobody can love me. I'm just this. I'm just that. I can't believe that I acted this way. I ruined all of my relationships. And I think that a lot of the work that we do is the difference between blame and accountability. Like this idea of blame, it really is just, it keeps you stuck. There's nowhere for you to go. You're just holding this immense pressure. You're holding all of this emotional weight, and you can't go anywhere. For accountability, I think that there is a path forward. There's this idea of, I'm recognizing my role,
Mm-hmm.
I'm recognizing what I've done, I'm recognizing the patterns that I've played, and it's informing how I'm going to move forward. If I push people away, I can take accountability that I've hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
And also, what does that mean for me moving forward? How do I no longer hurt people? How do I do the work of not pushing them away because I know that it's caused harm? So I think that a lot of our work is this idea of like, well, how do I get to this point of accountability rather than blame? Because I don't want to be stuck anymore.
Yeah. And that's a tough balance to get to, especially
Mm-hmm.
when the blame is mixed with shame, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
we can kind of really get stuck in like whether it's self pity or just feeling horrible about ourselves and almost not recognizing the impact because we're just feeling so intensely about ourselves and the things that we've done that
Mm-hmm.
we just associate like I'm a bad person versus these
Mm-hmm.
patterns or the way I've learned to interact with people isn't helpful or isn't conducive to what
Mm-hmm.
I want, right? And like the other end is like being entitled is just like, well, I can do whatever the hell I want and it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. So it's
Mm-hmm.
finding like I was at a conference, I think it was Terry Real. He was talking about finding this balance between like stern love with yourself, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like you should feel guilty by hurting somebody, but you shouldn't feel so guilty that now you're stuck in the shame, So it's like
Yeah.
that accountability is that middle piece. Because if I'm like, okay, I'm
Hmm.
not a bad person, I've just done something to hurt somebody, I can learn and move forward.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that it's even harder too when you have that shame, and also when you're doing, like work with your partner, and maybe they're not ready
Mm,
necessarily to kind of like, because I think that it can be like if I don't stay in blame, then you get scot free, you get off scot
mm,
free, or like we don't have to ever bring it up, or my feelings aren't being validated. If I don't stay here, then you get to do whatever you want once again, and I'm not heard. And so I think that in working with partners, especially, really taking into the room of, you can take accountability and still hold the emotion of the other person. You don't need blame to, validate your feelings. Part of our work is leaning into that uncomfortable of
mm.
being mindful, hey, you hurt me, and we're still trying to figure it out. And just because you take accountability, it doesn't mean that my hurt goes away, because I think that that's the biggest fear. If I allow this person to move forward, is my pain going to be disregarded?
Yeah. Or they're just going to repeat it again. It's not changed behavior,
Mhm,
it's just an
mhm.
apology and it doesn't move anywhere.
And then I'm enabling them because I'm allowing it. I'm allowing our work to move forward, and me just forgetting about everything they've done.
Mm. This is the lovely pieces of couples therapy.
Yeah, and I think that I've also seen it like in couples and families, because even like with working with parents, this idea of when I've worked with individuals, how can understand where they're coming from, but and if I give them, if if I forget what they've done to me, I'm letting them off the hook.
Mm,
I can see that my grandparents weren't great parents. I can see that my parents experienced abuse or neglect, or they were not equipped to be parents. If I take that into consideration, am I then just letting them off scot free? No, my feelings hurt, my pain hurts. So a lot of the work that I even see with individuals is, what does it look like to know that there might not be a similar accountability for your parents, but you can take accountability for what this means for you and how it informs you moving forward with them. So it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of heavy
yeah,
lifting. And so I always tell my clients, I'm like, make sure to be kind to yourself. You're doing a lot of deep work and heavy work, but it's worthwhile work.
absolutely. And it's tough with families. I think it's a little bit different than a romantic partner because
Hmm.
there's this different expectation or there's a different level of loyalty or commitment kind of in that way,
Hmm.
especially if you're coming from like a very family oriented background or culture where it's like,
Hmm.
well, our parents may be a particular way or they aren't the best or they're not as emotionally available or intelligent as I would prefer or may have needed, but I don't want to cut them out of my life. And
Hmm.
they don't understand or get a lot of these things that they're doing to me. So it can feel like one-sided work of like, okay, I'm going to need to
Hmm.
empathize, understand them, and they may not always be able to meet me where I need them to be,
Hmm.
and it's okay. Sometimes it's
Hmm.
okay, sometimes it's not, right? But it's like a decision for the individual to make like I'm just going to accept that this is the level of closeness I can maintain with my family in order to still
Hmm.
protect myself and not cut them off.
And I think that it comes down to what we're bringing into the room as therapists too, because there are therapists that would be like, "Oh, your parent doesn't treat you well, cut them off," and they're not taking into consideration the culture, the
Yeah.
background, even the idea of like, if I cut off my parents, I'm also cutting off any type of contact to my community,
Mm,
or I'm cutting off any type of contact to my siblings, um, and I think that that could be detrimental to the client.
yeah.
I also think bringing in what you might be experiencing as a therapist, because for you as a therapist, maybe you cut off your parents, and so it's like, oh, it's the best decision I made, so why not give it to my clients? When in reality, it's like it might not be the best, and it might not turn out the same way. Um, so I think that it's a really tricky part as a therapist too, of like, what am I bringing into the room? Because maybe I'm not done with all of the work. I certainly am not done with all of my family of origin work.
Hmm.
Um, but what am I bringing in, and how is that influencing what we're talking about?
Yeah. And I see that a lot, and in terms of like just being an immigrant as well, and like coming
Mhm,
from that family oriented background, is rarely are am I going to recommend cutting off a family member,
mhm,
because it's like you said, it's so detrimental in so many different ways, and relationships are really complicated and complex, and it's not
mhm,
always black and white, and having that cultural context and also knowing that what is kind of the norm within a culture is not going to be the norm and socially acceptable in, let's say, America, right? Or,
mhm,
any a different particular culture. So it's also kind of not putting our counter transference on somebody else because, well, my family or how I was raised, that would be really wrong or really emotionally abusive. So like that's horrible. You should not speak to
mhm,
them. Like,
mhm,
well, that could be how a
mhm.
whole culture operates.
Yeah.
So we can't
Yeah,
shut off everybody.
yeah, and as you were talking, I thought about, like, times where in therapy folks will talk about self-care,
Mm.
because I think self-care is another one of those things that really is, like, blinded it can be blinded by a therapist. It's like, "Well, you know what I think you should do? I think you should just schedule a massage and just go to this local spa. Here are some referrals." And I'm like, "Spa? Massage? Listen, coming from where I came from, I'm not going to a spa. I'm not getting a massage. Nobody's touching me. Like, and also, who has money for that? So I think it's another thing where it's like sometimes as therapists, you have to be mindful of being in touch with where your client is and where they're coming
Mm.
from. Because some of the things you're suggesting, it's like, no, that's never going to fly. What are you doing? You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And self care just irks my life anyway because I think it's become this sense of like you have to do something grand and big.
Mhm.
So, but that once again, that could be another 5 hour conversation.
So I love your Instagram, MFT Foodie. I actually like really look
Mhm.
forward. I'm like, oh, I wonder where he's at this week to see like the different coffee shops and the food. And I love that you really promote like that healthy relationship with food. Would you be able to elaborate or dive a little bit more into that?
Mhm. It is a journey, and I think that it's a journey that a lot of folks have, where they have this especially if you've grown up in any type of American culture, you have this really weird relationship with food. And it's like this very big fixture because it's something that you need to survive, but it's also this very grandiose thing that can show power and status in all of these really negative things. But I think that we also forget and we also lose touch that it can be a really nice thing that brings people together,
Yeah.
that we're able to connect with, that you can nourish your body with, but in a way that really appreciates the ingredients and appreciates, the different benefits to the body and the different ways that you interact with the food, or even just in like the cognitive aspect of the pleasure that you can get from different types of food. And it doesn't always have to be like deep fried to enjoy. It can be just like the different flavors and the tastes. And I think that food can really just be this thing that is very dividing when really it can very much be something that you can just bring people in together with. So I think that when I think about MFT Foodie, it really is just building this community of people that I don't have everything figured out.
Mhm.
And um, I don't want to be on any type of spectrum of I only eat boiled chicken and broccoli, and or I eat whatever I want and it's all fried and greasy and everything. But there can be this middle where we don't have everything figured out, but we can learn together. Because I certainly don't have everything figured out, and it's always going to be a food journey for myself. Um, but yeah, I think that that's really what my vision was when I combined two things that I love: food and therapy.
I love food, and food is definitely like
Mhm,
one of those things where you think about pleasure is
mhm,
just all the different memories caught up in like different kinds of food too, whether it's like from growing
mhm,
up or different places you're at or like the experience you're having with food and sharing it with people. And it's interesting thinking about it also from like a cultural perspective of how
mhm,
different every culture or similarly treats the relationship with food, but also within the family and then within that culture of how they expect romantic relationships too, or like how you
Mhm.
view yourself within that too. Because I'm thinking
Mhm.
about like my background, like Eastern European, is very contradictory. It's,
Mhm.
you know, feeding your family is a love language, and having, your children or your grandchildren eat everything off the plate is like a sign of like love and respect. And if they don't, it's like you didn't like my food. Like you're going to leave
Mhm.
hungry. But then at the same time, it's like, well, if you gain weight or if you look a
Mhm.
particular way, who will marry you? And it's like
Mhm. Yes.
very confusing and conflicting. And that's just
Mhm.
like the common narrative around it, at least in like my background.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that that's why, we're in a very big season of eating. But then also, I don't know if you're a Hunger Games fan, but the new movie just came out, and I think I'll read, and I'm like, oh God, I'm a capital citizen. I'm a capital citizen. And for anybody who doesn't know, Suzanne Collins, I think she wrote as like a symbol of the traditional overabundance,
Mm,
overindulgence kind of like American mentality for the capital citizens. They always want more, they always crave more, they have a drink that they drink to throw up so they can eat more food. Yeah. So I think it really very much is this idea of food shows a sense of, oh, this is how far I've come, or I can,
mm,
oh, this is a big deal, I can do this, I can do this. But then it also has this really negative side of things of like, oh, but don't get too fat, like you were saying, or oh, don't do this, or
mm,
oh, don't eat this, or I can't believe you ate that because now you don't deserve. And
mm.
that's a big thing of like, oh, if
Yeah.
I've eaten dessert, I don't deserve this, or I can't eat the next day, or I have to exercise out all of the food that I've just eaten. And it really is this like very big yo-yo of these counterintuitive and contradictory statements that we tell ourselves. Oh, if I've eaten too much, I don't deserve to have my partner. My partner will never love me. So
Mm,
just a really strange thing. And it's also those internal messages that maybe aren't so drastic that we never think about. Um, it's like, oh, this is a bad food.
mm. Just
I don't want to
labeling
eat
it.
that because it's bad. And it's like, oh, what's bad about it? Well, it has a lot of sugar. Well, sugar in itself isn't necessarily bad. Some people will be like, no, it is high fructose corn syrup. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. But I'm just really thinking about these like internal messages where maybe they're not as drastic, but we carry
Mm.
them around and they've impacted our relationship with food. And we really need to consider them.
I have a newborn daughter now, and so the way I talk about my body and my relationship with food is something that's directly going to impact her and how she thinks about herself and her relationship with food. So I'm trying to be really conscious of unconditioning myself around that.
Mhm, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's even like socioeconomic status. It's gender. It's racial.
Mhm.
Because apparently, well, my family wasn't well off at all. But I think that my older siblings would say like, "Oh, you had it great," because we were on the up and up when I was born.
Mm.
But but really being mindful that if you are really struggling you know, to meet the needs of the kids, or you don't have money for food, or you're relying on donations or whatever it might be,
Mhm.
you know you really have to think about, I don't know when my next food is going to come in. I'm going to just kind of indulge, or it's going to be high fat, high salt, high everything kind of food, and that's what your body's going to get used to. So it makes sense that it's going to be this like famine and feast kind of mentality. And how does that trickle down? Even if I was born on the up and up, how is that still going to be something that my family lives off of, and that mentality continues? And I think I even see it with some of the clients that I'm working with. It's like, oh, we didn't have this, but now I do, and now I'm hoarding, or now I like consume a lot of, or
Yeah.
this is a comfort of mine. And really thinking about, well, like, it has an origin, it serves a purpose, so it shouldn't be coming from a place of shame. It should be something that we acknowledge and we honor, that that was how you had to really think. And what are some other ways that we can shift that thinking, and what are some of the supports that you might need to assist with your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a good point to think about that, like ancestrally, like throughout,
Hmm.
whether it's like your parents or your grandparents or your great grandparents, right? Because that is passed down, like that intergenerational trauma or beliefs or
Hmm.
narratives. Because I'm thinking about like, I came from former Soviet Union, and my parents and grandparents and great grandparents and, several
Hmm.
before that was in communism, where like there was a lot of food
Hmm.
insecurity, and like
Hmm.
our diets were made up of meat, potatoes, bread, and fat.
Hmm. Yeah.
Right? And like I love that, but it's, thinking about like, yeah, that makes sense why they ate that is to feel full, because otherwise they
Hmm.
didn't have enough food, or it would go bad because there weren't preservatives in it. And like that being
Hmm.
passed down, I think is really important for people to also to recognize. So I think that's such a great point to think about. Like it's not just you right now or even
Hmm.
your parents. It's like how long ago did this kind of really instill this message of the type of food you needed to survive?
Hmm. And I think like the cutting out of food too can also be cutting out different cultural things that are very
Mm.
important to you. I always think about times where it's like, well, have you ever thought about not eating, beans and rice? They're very heavy. And I just like feel like this like ancestral like immediate head snap from like all of my ancestors for years and years and years. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that there are thousands of ancestors and thousands of part of the world that have just screamed in their grave because literally rice and beans have provided for many multitudes of people.
Mhm.
So I think really not going the other side of like, oh, this is bad, let's cut it out, but more of like, yes, they have survived off of these things, and let's really put it into context.
Mhm.
Maybe ancestors who ate a lot of rice and beans were, doing a lot more than me who's doing teletherapy in my apartment, so really being mindful of like how much am I consuming,
Mhm.
how can I still have it in my diet, and also take into consideration my different activity level than what my ancestors would be doing. And because I think that putting it into context allows for a little bit more of grounding and strength rather than feeling like I have to do this very hardcore thing and this very restrictive thing,
Yeah.
because then it's going to feel like, well, I don't want to, but I have to, as opposed to coming from this place of grounding of I'm figuring it out. And
Mhm.
maybe there are going to be some trial and error, but at least I'm coming from a place of strength.
Yeah. And a different lifestyle, different environment, different needs and demands of you. Yeah.
Hmm. And I think that it's really just unfair that, the high calorie foods are the delicious food. Like, who did that? And who said that? Are you kidding? I
Man.
know that some people would be like, well, hey, like, turnips are delightful compared to cake. Who decided that?
Oh my god, I know. Thinking about like not eating a potato, like the rest of my life would feel like a betrayal. Like you're saying, like rice and beans. Like, what do you mean?
I did. I was in New York City, food capital potentially. Although Philly, I did hear is, kind of getting
Coming
up
up.
there.
Mm.
Um, and I was sitting in a coffee shop and I just heard somebody next to me and they were talking about their food. They're like, yeah, I just had this really great dinner. I'm like, ooh, this is exciting because I'm eavesdropping, but I'm a therapist by trade, so I'm listening. Uh, and he's like, I had boiled chicken. And I'm like, oh, oh, oh. And he's like, and I had some potatoes, just like two. And I was like whole or like halves? And then he's like, and then I had some steamed broccoli, and I cut it up into half, and then I saved the other half for tomorrow, and I feel good, and now I'm about to go to the gym, and I was like, oh, in New York City, I don't know if I would have that restraint. God bless you, sir, because listen, I'm gonna eat,
Hmm.
and that is my cross to bear. But really, like, did they have to make it like? Why couldn't if you bite into a pear, it was like cheesecake, delightful,
I will say some fruit definitely hits the spot.
Yeah, and I think that that's something of like. So I work with a nutritionist. Shout
Hmm.
out to Body Metric in Royersford. Woo. But they were talking about how um, there are certain foods that you're going to just be craving, and you're going to
Hmm.
be like, yes, this is what I want, and as opposed to being like, oh, I can only eat this and that's it. But really thinking about how can I have this food and other foods that are going to fill me, be nutritious, get me the things that I need for my body to function.
Sure.
And that was a really big change of, like as opposed to like, oh, if you eat this one bad thing, that's all you can eat. you can't eat anything else because it's too high in calories.
Mhm.
But really thinking about it in the way of like, how can I have this need met while also getting these other nutrients that I need? And so it's a more adding to
Yeah.
as opposed to like taking away from.
Yeah. And kind of listening to what your body needs, right? Because you're saying,
Hmm.
like, someone's not always going to want fried foods just because,
Hmm.
it's tasty sometimes. Like, we just got a pizza oven and we
Mm.
have been going ham on making these homemade pizzas.
Uh-huh.
But there was like the second day, I was like, I can't do it anymore. Like,
Yeah.
I just want something fresh. Like, I want a
Hmm.
vegetable, I want a salad. And that was just
Hmm.
my body telling me, like, this is delicious for sure. And we're going to do this
Hmm.
next weekend. But like, I don't want it anymore, which was
Hmm.
interesting because in my mind, I'm like, I could eat pizza every day.
I think that's why I can really understand the seasons, because like it's the Earth's way of saying you don't need this thing all the time. Because if watermelon existed the entirety of the year, I would eat it every day.
Hmm.
It's delight. Watermelon, peaches. I've been in a raspberry era recently, so it's pretty exciting.
That's hilarious. I feel like this could just turn into a food show. I'm just thinking about all the
Please.
different.
I actually transitioned to my kitchen and I'm like, today we're going to. I would love to incorporate that into therapy,
Oh my
but
god.
I know my boundaries. And I know that if we did something and it didn't turn out, I would be more upset than the client. I'd be like, but you worked so hard. So I'm like, I don't think that I will be incorporating cooking, but I know that it could be really beneficial for people in therapy.
That would actually be a really cool experiential way to
Mhm,
process and heal some things.
mhm. Oh, there was a really great TikToker. I forget. I think her name is Alicia. No, I don't think so. But she was talking about healing her inner child, and one of those
Mm.
things was that she bought a box of brownie mix, and when she was a child, they had to do the brownies a certain way. They couldn't eat them only until her stepmother said that they could eat them, and they had to be served in a specific way. They had to be cut in a certain way.
Wow.
And there was a time where something had happened where she was reprimanded for something she didn't do, and it was really tied to this. So part of her healing her inner child was she made the box of brownies. She did it in a completely different way than she had to when she was a child. And then when they were done, she didn't wait for them to cool. She cut a triangle, I think it was, in the middle of the pan, and
Badass.
then just scooped it out and ate it over the pan. And I thought it was really great because it really was this idea of I'm honoring this past that I've had, and I'm honoring what I really wanted from when I was a child, and now I'm able to do it because I have a little bit more control over my narrative. And I can really heal that part of me by saying, like, you didn't do wrong just because you did things wrong in a different way.
Yeah.
It's okay to do them differently.
I really love that. That's also how I
Hmm.
eat food in general.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just hovering.
Well, I am very. My sister did call me a dance mom when it comes to baking, because I'll be like, no, not yet, or we have to do it this way. So that's why I'm just like, maybe baking is a personal thing that I do for myself. It's not really a group activity. And that's part of knowing your boundaries and knowing
Hmm.
your capacity.
That's
And I
right.
talk about that with my clients all the time because I think, I'll be talking with friends and they'll be like, yeah, maybe like our kids, like can come over and you like bake with them. And I'm like, or I get all of the ingredients and then I send it to your house where you live. Like that.
Mhm. And you
Because
do it.
I don't want to be that person who is like, no, you didn't decorate right to like the child. So know your capacities, understand your capacities, and it's okay to honor your capacity.
Look at that self-awareness and
Yeah.
insight.
It came, like there were a couple of times where I was cooking or baking with somebody, and I'm like, I have to breathe through. I have to breathe through it because I was about to lose the plot. So,
And then there goes Thanksgiving dinner. No.
it's Christmas for me. I'm like,
Mm.
Christmas has to be this way. Um, but yeah, we'll all get there. We'll get there.
That's so funny. I did want to touch on, so I know that you work at Council for Relationships and you're the director of internships.
Mhm.
Can you share a little bit about that experience? Because you have all of these budding marriage and family therapists about to go into the field. So you get to
Yeah.
mold the minds of all of these new therapists coming out.
Yeah, so CFR currently has 75
Wow.
interns. Yeah, it is a laugh riot. But I think that it's great because we literally see folks, some of our interns have never seen clients before
Mm.
in any type of context. Some of them have seen them in other like group therapies or other settings. So it's really cool to see somebody who's just starting out and see them go through the different feelings of being a first time therapist and then getting a little bit more comfortable and then getting to the end of their program and then launching into the field and having their first clients wherever they're working. So I think it's really cool to be able to see like literally from the beginning their
Yeah,
growth happening. And I also supervise in the program, so it's really cool to be able to be part of people's initial steps as clinicians. Um, it can come with a lot of trials and tribulations, but
sure.
overall, it really is this awesome time to really just be able to see people blossom. And I always say, I was like, if when I use a when, I don't say if. When you have the career that you want and you've written your book or you've written whatever you would like to do, just remember in that little acknowledgement section, poor Alan, you know, and it might
Shout
be this
out.
positive. Yeah, it might be this positive. You really taught me everything. It also might be that negative for Alan because I thrived in spite of you, or something like that. Because there is part of this director role where it is like you have to do this, you have to do this, you show that you do this, you have to,
Mhm.
kind of being the heavy.
Yeah,
So whether it's in spite of or because of, the shout out is appreciated.
there's no
You
bad
know,
press, Ellen.
there is not.
That's awesome, though. And so during those classes that you have with them, is it helping them find an internship or they're interning at council and then you're kind of doing
Yeah.
that supervision class with them to talk through everything that they're going through?
Yeah, so they're interning at the council. So we take students from Thomas Jefferson University, and then we have partnerships with University of Pennsylvania, Temple University, Bryn
Mhm.
Mawr College,
Oh, wow.
Westchester University, all of these different places that we're really trying to build connections with. And so they'll come here, they'll do their clinical placement with us. I supervise with the master's level students. So we'll meet either for 2 hours, depending on if I'm meeting with two people, or 1 hour if I'm meeting with one.
Mm.
And it really is to watch over their caseload, watch their case videos, talk about what's going on clinically. Because I think that the thing is that a lot of the folks that are in our internship, they have this innate ability to meet clients where they are,
Mhm.
talk about what they're experiencing. So for those who are listening who are like, oh, I don't know about seeing an intern for therapy, no, really give it a shot and
Mhm.
really, really go with an open mind, because a lot of these folks are in this field because they want to help and they want to meet you where you are, and they want you to achieve your goals, and they have the skill set innately of listening or connecting with you or joining or really just holding what you have to say, which is something that sometimes our family and our friends don't do well. um, so they really are coming in with these skills that we're now just teaching. Hey, here's a technique, here are some um, you know theories to apply to what you already are doing.
Mhm.
That's how you do a therapy session. So I think that it is really amazing being able to invest in these skills that people are coming in with and allow them to flourish in this new way of, oh, now I'm able to use my skills, but I'm also attaching theory, I'm also attaching clinical practices to it,
Mhm.
and helping people in the meantime.
Yeah. And they really do care. I mean,
Hmm.
obviously we still care as therapists, but I think like when
Hmm.
you really start, you just like the amount of care you have and compassion and empathy and like you just want to do so well that
Hmm.
sometimes we go above and beyond, right? And you have to like
Hmm.
reel it in a little bit.
Hmm.
But it is true. I mean, for people listening, if you have the opportunity to see an intern, like I don't think it's necessarily a negative experience just because they're not as experienced in the field. They actually care so much and want to
Hmm.
see you do well and grow and heal. So I think it's a
Hmm.
great experience. I think it's awesome that council provides that too.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think, especially, it's just really interesting, and I talked to a lot of people who are like, "Well, I haven't been able to find a therapist," and I'm like, "Why? What's going on?" And they're like, "Everybody's full, or everybody's
Mhm.
busy, I can't afford it." I think that, like, uh, price can always be a
For
barrier,
sure.
so I think that it's great that we have these 75 people who really are just eager to help and eager to learn, and they're learning from their supervisor, and they're implementing it in the therapy. And it really is like if you reach out, you really get connected with somebody very quickly.
Mhm.
So I think, that's why I always say, like, don't let the sun go down on interns. I think therapists are just like anything else. If it's not your cup of tea, or if it's not the person that connects with you, it's not the person who connects with you.
Yeah.
But don't let it just be because, oh, they're an intern or they don't have a license yet. That
Mhm.
really deters you from seeing somebody.
Yeah.
If you might meet them and it might be a really great fit and really good connection and something that you really need where you are, then, and it might be somebody who's like, we don't really jive together, and that's completely fine.
Mhm.
I always say to my clients, like, if it's not me, that's completely fine. I'm here to help you however I can and get you to where you need to be. But I think that it can be really hard taking that first step of, what if it doesn't work out? I think that that's part of the therapy practice, and I think that
Yeah.
that's part of the therapeutic journey. So don't let that be a reason why you're not reaching out for therapy.
Yeah. And I think I say this a lot to clients or even people who are looking for a therapist. Like, it is a lot like dating, like
Hmm.
you're going to meet. I mean, I think you're going to be really lucky if the first therapist you meet is like the match, because that's
Hmm.
incredible, but that doesn't always happen because you may not even know what kind of therapist you like or need, or the approach that would be best for you, until you kind of meet a few people and try.
Hmm.
And it's just, giving it a shot, like you're saying, and seeing who might be a good fit, because maybe on paper it sounds great, and then you meet the person and there's just like no energy between the two of you for whatever reason.
Hmm.
Or you might have thought this person wouldn't be a good match and you gave them a shot and you're like, wow, this is like perfect. You really
Hmm.
get me. I feel comfortable. This is a great match.
With the caveat, like, and much like in dating, that it really be mindful of what is the no for you, because it might be
Mm.
like, well, I entered and I sat down and they didn't say how are you, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's the no. Okay. So just really be mindful of, like, am I giving this person a shot? And also give it a couple of sessions. Like, is this something that we're ramping up? Because you are just meeting a stranger.
Yeah.
I think you can meet somebody who is like, oh, I feel like I've known you for years. This feels good. This feels like good work, clicking, clicking, clicking.
Hmm.
But also maybe it's a relationship where it takes a little bit of time to get to know the person. And like,
Yeah.
oh, we do good work, but it's taken us like 3 sessions to really ramp
Hmm.
up and really understand each other.
Yeah. First session is not going to be like your world has changed and you're healed, right? Like, they are
And
literally just getting to know who you are and like the lay of the land and what's been going on. And for a few sessions, continuing to do that before we can really offer a lot of insight or help you.
yeah, and I think that that's another reason why Hollywood has really worked against us as therapists. Because in every movie or every show, they go to the therapist
Hmm.
once,
Yep.
and that first session is how everything changes. And I'm like, you're really putting the bar pretty high, and I don't think that this is accurate.
No, this is not realistic. I don't know
Yeah.
everything about you.
They do the same thing for like dating and relationships, and I'm like, have you
Sure.
ever dated in this world? It is a nightmare. So.
Oh my goodness. Well, Alan, I want to be respectful of your time. I feel like we could talk for hours about so many different things. So we'll definitely need to have you back for another episode. But can you please share with the listeners where they can find you to work with you or to go to counsel?
Mhm. Yeah, so, if you wanna follow me on Instagram, it's at MFT Foodie. If you would like to work together, you can reach out to Council for Relationships in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and that's for anybody. I do teletherapy, like I said, for folks in Delaware, New Jersey, Florida. Shout out to New York, hopefully soon, like I said, and then also in other parts of Pennsylvania. So going to www.councilforrelationships.org, and you'll be able to find me there, and hopefully we'll be able to work together.
Awesome. Alan, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.